welcome to another deep dive. You sent some really interesting articles today.
Yeah, all from cryptoguru.live, all published today, actually. November 27th, 2024.
We're diving into the world of crypto.
Yeah. Specifically Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana.
But we might touch on some other stuff too.
Definitely. A lot going on in the crypto world.
Yeah, so let's get started.
Let's jump right in.
All right, so Bitcoin. It hit almost $100,000 recently.
Yeah. Wild, right?
Yeah, then dipped back down. Should I be worried? Should our listeners be worried?
Well, everyone's asking that. But the interesting thing is there's a real contrast in sentiment right now.
Oh, how so?
You have the retail investors, the everyday people.
Right.
They're being pretty cautious, not really showing a fear of missing out. That FOMO that usually drives these big price swings.
Yeah, okay, I see.
Then you have the institutional investors, the big players.
Right.
And they seem to see this dip as a buying opportunity.
So it's almost like there are two different games being played.
Yeah.
One by the individual investors and one by the institutions.
You got it. CryptoQuant CEO Ki-Young Ju, he's noticed this trend.
Oh, yeah.
He even tweeted out this chart showing stable retail trading intensity.
Even with the prices going up and down like that?
Even when Bitcoin was near its peak. So it looks like everyday investors are, not panicking.
They're playing it cool.
Yeah. But on the flip side, you have Marathon Digital Holdings CEO Fred Thiel. He says that institutions are, he says they're waiting to buy up Bitcoin, is how he put it.
Interesting. But wouldn't that push the price up even more if all these big institutions are buying?
You would think, right. Thiel thinks it comes down to a few key things.
Okay.
The introduction of Bitcoin ETFs, which has made it easier for institutions to invest.
Okay, that makes sense.
Also, the potential for a more favorable regulatory environment and, get this, even political support.
Political support? How so?
Well, with President-elect Trump, he's got a pro-crypto stance. So if these factors keep developing, we could see the institutions really start to drive the market.
So what you're saying is, while retail investors are being cautious, the institutions might be about to make a big move that could really shift things.
Exactly. And that's something you'll want to watch closely.
So I guess the big question for me, and I'm sure for a lot of our listeners, is if you're trying to figure out if now is the time to buy Bitcoin, what should you be looking at?
I think you need to look beyond the hype. Really try to understand what's happening beneath the surface.
Like what?
What are these big players doing? What are the regulatory changes on the horizon? What are the long-term trends? If you can get a handle on those things, you'll be in a much better position to decide.
Okay, that's great advice. Now let's talk about Ethereum. There's this whole narrative out there that Ethereum is dead.
Yeah, you hear that a lot these days.
But is that really true?
Well, it's an interesting narrative, one that's been circulating for a while now. But if you look at the data, Ethereum is showing some really positive signs.
Like what? Give me some specifics.
Well, we're seeing an all-time high in open interest for ETH futures contracts.
Okay, and remind me what that means again.
That means that there's a lot of interest in the future price of Ethereum. People are still betting on its success. We're also seeing a big increase in Ethereum's total value locked.
Total value locked?
Yeah.
TVL.
Yeah, TVL. And that represents the amount of cryptocurrency that's been deposited into decentralized finance applications, or DeFi.
Oh, DeFi, right.
And a high TVL suggests that there's a lot of activity, a lot of growth in the DeFi space, which is built mainly on Ethereum.
Gotcha. So more activity in DeFi could mean potential gains for investors.
Yeah, particularly with the potential for political support we talked about with Trump's pro-crypto stance.
Right, right.
Just remember, though, this is a complex space, and the regulatory landscape is always shifting.
So it's important to not only track these metrics, but also keep an eye on what's happening with regulations.
Absolutely. Regulation is key for the future of any cryptocurrency.
Okay, so we've talked Bitcoin, we've talked Ethereum. Now let's move on to Solana. This has been making some big moves lately.
Yeah, practically doubled in price in the last week alone.
Crazy. So what's driving that?
Well, to understand Solana, you got to look at XRP.
XRP.
The cryptocurrency associated with Ripple.
Right.
It's been on a tear recently, hitting a 3-year high. And Solana's price has historically been correlated with XRP. So some of Solana's rise is probably tied to XRP's success.
So it's kind of riding the wave a bit.
In a way, yeah. But Solana's also got some strengths of its own that are attracting investors.
Like what?
It's becoming very popular with institutional investors.
Interesting.
We're seeing partnerships with big names like MasterCard and Franklin Templeton. These partnerships, they showcase Solana's potential for real-world use.
Real-world adoption, that's a good sign.
It is. Then there's Grayscale. They're a major digital asset management firm, and they recently put a ton of money into their Stellar Lumens Trust.
Wait, Stellar Lumens? I thought we were talking about Solana.
We are, but Solana and Stellar Lumens, they're closely linked. This move by Grayscale, it's increasing liquidity and attracting more investors to that whole ecosystem.
So it's kind of a ripple effect, so to speak.
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay, so Solana's benefiting both from the overall market momentum, especially with XRP doing well, and from its own unique strengths.
Exactly. It's a powerful combination.
It is. So we've talked Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. What does all of this tell us about the crypto market as a whole? Should we be bullish? Should we be bearish?
The million-dollar question.
It really is. What do you think?
I mean, with institutional investors seeming bullish on Bitcoin, Ethereum showing strong fundamentals, and Solana riding this wave of momentum, it's hard not to be at least a little optimistic.
Okay,
But you always got to remember, crypto is still very volatile and unpredictable.
that's true.
So while there are reasons to be cheerful, you got to stay informed and be aware of the risks.
That's great advice. We've covered a lot today. Where should we go next in our deep dive?
Let's stick with Ethereum for a bit. We touched on the positive signs, but there are some potential risks we should look at too, like the impact of leveraged liquidations.
Okay, liquidations. Let's unpack that. What exactly are they and why should we care?
Well, liquidations, they happen when traders use leverage to amplify their positions. Essentially, they're borrowing money to try to increase their gains.
So leverage is kind of a double-edged sword.
Exactly. Because if the market moves against them, their losses get amplified too.
Ouch.
And they can be forced to sell their assets to cover their debts. This can trigger a cascade of selling, pushing prices down even further.
So even if Ethereum is fundamentally strong, there's still a risk that liquidations could bring the price down.
Right. It's a reminder that even in a bull market, risk management is crucial.
That's a really important point. Thanks for explaining that. Now, we've talked a lot about the technical side of crypto, but I'm curious about the bigger picture. What does all of this mean for the average person? What's the real-world impact of all these trends and developments?
That's a great question. I think the key takeaway here is that crypto is becoming more accessible, more mainstream.
I can definitely see that. It's not just this niche thing for, tech enthusiasts anymore.
Right. We're seeing more and more big institutions entering the market, and that brings legitimacy, stability, and, of course, capital.
It really feels like crypto is entering this new phase of, maturity and acceptance.
Yeah, and with that acceptance comes more user-friendly platforms and services.
Which makes it easier for everyday people to buy, sell, and use crypto.
Exactly. I mean, we're seeing crypto integrated into traditional financial institutions. We're seeing the rise of crypto-friendly payment processors. Even some governments are starting to adopt crypto.
Wow, that's a lot of progress in a short amount of time. It's kind of exciting to think about where all of this might be heading.
It is. But like we've been saying, you got to be aware of the risks involved. You got to approach crypto with a healthy dose of caution.
And critical thinking.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been a great overview of what's happening with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. Thanks for sharing your insights with us.
My pleasure. Yeah, it is exciting. You're right, it really wasn't that long ago that crypto was this kind of mysterious thing that most people didn't really understand.
Yeah, definitely. But with all this talk about big institutions getting involved and these user-friendly platforms, I can't help but wonder if there are any downsides to crypto becoming, so mainstream.
That's a really good point. It's important to look at this from all angles. I'd say one potential concern is, increased centralization.
Oh, how so?
Well, as these large institutions, these corporations, they come into the crypto space, there's a risk that they could start to, exert more and more influence.
So it's kind of a paradox. On the one hand, we need these big players to, bring legitimacy and stability to the market. But on the other hand, we don't want to lose that decentralized nature of crypto. That's kind of what made it so appealing in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. It's a real balancing act. Another concern is the environmental impact.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one, especially with sustainability becoming more and more important.
Absolutely. Some cryptocurrencies, especially those that rely on, energy-intensive mining processes, they've come under fire for their environmental footprint. We need to see more innovation in that area.
Yeah, more sustainable, eco-friendly alternatives.
Right. And, like any emerging market, there's always the risk of scams and fraud. People need to be really careful about where they invest their money.
Do your research.
Exactly.
Be aware of the risks. Don't get caught up in the hype.
Solid advice. For any investment, really, not just crypto.
Okay, so we've talked about the good, the bad, the ugly. Now let's bring it back to the individual investor. What advice would you give to someone who's, thinking about adding crypto to their portfolio for the first time?
I get asked that a lot, and I always start with the same thing, education. Don't invest in anything you don't understand.
Do your research.
Exactly. Take the time to learn about the different types of cryptocurrencies, the technology behind them, the risks, the rewards. There's so much information out there.
And don't forget about diversification.
Oh, yeah. That's key. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? Just like with traditional investing, diversification helps manage risk.
So don't bet the farm on Bitcoin or any other single cryptocurrency.
Well, unless you have a very high risk tolerance.
True. Any other tips for crypto newbies?
Start small. Don't invest more than you can afford to lose. It's easy to get carried away by the excitement, but it's still a volatile market.
Don't get caught up in the hype. It seems like there's a new hot cryptocurrency every week.
Yeah, and you got to avoid those pumps and dumps. Don't fall for those get-rich-quick schemes. Do your research, develop a strategy, and stick to it.
Solid advice. So we've mostly focused on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana, but there are, thousands of other cryptocurrencies out there?
Yeah, the altcoin space is huge.
What are some others that are, catching your attention these days?
Well, one that's been making noise is Cardano.
Cardano, yeah.
It's seen as a potential competitor to Ethereum.
Okay, interesting. What else?
Polkadot's another one to watch.
Polkadot, okay.
It's trying to connect different blockchains together, creating a more, interoperable ecosystem.
So like a bridge between different blockchains? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. And then you have, the meme coins.
Oh, right. Dogecoin, Shiba Inu, all those.
Exactly. They might not be as technically sophisticated as some of the others, but they're incredibly popular, especially on social media.
Yeah, you can't ignore them.
It's a reminder that crypto is about more than just technology and finance,
Yeah.
It's also about community, culture.
The human element.
Right. And speaking of the human element, we've talked about regulation and politics a bit.
Right.
It's worth looking closer at President-elect Trump's pro-crypto stance, what that could mean for the future of crypto.
Yeah, we mentioned it briefly earlier, but I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, it's definitely sparked some debate in the crypto community.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Some people are optimistic. They see his pro-business deregulation agenda as a good thing. They think it could lead to, a more favorable regulatory environment here in the U.S.
Okay, so that's the optimistic view. What about the other side?
Some are worried that his America First policies could actually hurt the global growth of crypto. And there are concerns about potential conflicts of interest given his history with businesses that have been linked to, crypto scams.
So it's kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah, it's too early to say for sure what his presidency will mean for crypto, but it's definitely something people will be watching closely.
For sure. And speaking of things people are watching closely, we can't ignore regulation in general.
Yeah, regulation is, it's key. It's really the key to mainstream adoption and creating a sustainable future for crypto.
But it's also incredibly complex and constantly changing.
Exactly. What's really interesting is that we're seeing a global shift towards, more comprehensive crypto regulation.
So it's not just a U.S. thing.
No, it's global. Countries all over the world are trying to figure out how to balance, fostering innovation with protecting consumers.
Right, protecting the financial system.
Exactly. We're seeing a lot of different approaches, like the European Union's MiCA regulation, China's crackdown on crypto, every country's got its own unique situation.
Yeah, it's a global phenomenon, so there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Right. And regulation isn't static. It's going to keep evolving as the crypto market changes.
This is a lot to think about. It seems like regulation is going to be a major factor shaping the future of crypto.
It definitely will be. But beyond regulation, beyond the financial aspects, there's another really important dimension to crypto that we need to consider.
Oh, what's that?
The human element. We've talked a lot about market trends, technology, regulatory frameworks. It's easy to forget that crypto is ultimately about people.
Yeah, it's about how this technology is affecting people's lives, on a personal level.
Exactly. It's providing financial access to people who don't have bank accounts. It's enabling cross-border payments. It's creating new ways for people to express themselves and connect.
It's not just about making money.
No, it's about empowering people. giving them more control. We're seeing stories of people using crypto to escape poverty, to support their families, to fund their dreams.
That's amazing.
It is, but with that potential comes responsibility. We have to make sure this technology is used for good, that it benefits everyone, not just a small group of people.
Yeah, we have to be mindful of the risks and challenges.
Absolutely. We have to work together to make sure this crypto ecosystem is equitable and sustainable.
It's a powerful tool. And as they say, with great power goes great responsibility.
Well said. So as we start to wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought. We've looked at where crypto is now, the trends, the good, the bad, the possibilities. But what about the future?
Yeah. What about the future? What role will crypto play in the world of tomorrow?
Will it become just a normal part of our lives? Or will it fade away? What new innovations will we see? How will governments and regulations shape things? And maybe most importantly, how will we as individuals, as a global community, decide to use this technology?
Those are some big questions. I don't think anyone has the answers yet.
Right.
But that's what makes this all so exciting, right? We're literally witnessing this huge shift in technology and society.
Yeah.
And the possibilities, they really are endless.
They are. The crypto journey is far from over. It's just getting started.
Yeah, it really does feel like we're just at the beginning of something huge.
We are, but I think it's important to remember that speed isn't everything.
What do you mean?
Well, as we're innovating and pushing the limits of what crypto can do, we also need to be thinking about the ethical implications.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about the financial side, the technology, but what about the ethics of all this? What are some of the ethical things we need to consider with crypto?
One of the biggest ones is privacy. Cryptocurrencies offer this level of anonymity that you don't really get with traditional finance.
Right.
And that can be a good thing sometimes, but it can also be used for, illegal stuff.
Like money laundering, tax evasion.
Exactly. So there's this kind of trade-off between privacy and security.
Yeah.
Another thing to think about is accessibility. We talked about crypto going mainstream, but there's still a lot of people who don't have internet access or the money to get involved.
So crypto could actually make inequality worse.
It could, yeah.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that the benefits of crypto are shared widely and that everyone has a chance to participate if they want to.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
What about using crypto for charity? I've been hearing a lot about that.
Yeah, crypto philanthropy is really taking off, and it has the potential to change how we think about giving and receiving donations.
How so?
Well, crypto transactions are really transparent, secure, and efficient,
Okay.
which makes them perfect for charitable giving.
So it's like cutting out all the middlemen and the bureaucracy?
Yeah, exactly. And because everything's recorded on the blockchain, it's easier to track those donations and make sure they're actually being used for what they're supposed to be used for.
So more transparency, more accountability.
Exactly. And that helps build trust, which is really important for charities.
It is, for sure. And are we actually seeing crypto being used for good in the real world?
Oh, absolutely. We're seeing some really amazing examples. Disaster relief, scientific research, even social justice initiatives are all being funded with crypto.
Wow, that's really inspiring.
Yeah,
Sounds like crypto really does have the power to make a difference.
it does. But it's up to us to use it for good. We need to be having these conversations about the ethical side of crypto and work together to create a future where this technology benefits everyone.
I totally agree. Well, this has been a really insightful deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground,
We have.
from the nitty-gritty details of certain cryptocurrencies to the big picture, the trends and what all of this means for the future.
The opportunities, the challenges, the things we need to be careful about as this whole landscape keeps changing.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to say that the future of crypto, well, it's full of possibilities.
It is where this journey will take us. Well, only time will tell, but it's definitely going to be an exciting ride.
It is. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of crypto.
It's been my pleasure.
And thanks to you, our listeners, for tuning in. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.